Hello my friends, there has been a huge patch for Helldivers 2 which has completely shaken up the meta. Some very important bug fixes that we have been begging for since day one, along with massive changes to some very key weapons and stratagems. I have spent all day testing out everything in this patch so that you don't have to. So let's take a look at the top 15 highlights you need to know from the latest Helldivers 2 patch as I take you through what that actually means for you. So let's start off by taking a look at the 6 weapons that have been changed, some fantastic buffs and nerfs, and we'll start off with the biggest upset, the Railgun. Personally, I feel like this thing did need nerfing. Not because I hated how strong it was, but because of the fact that I was upset for all the other amazing weapons in this game that weren't being used just because they weren't as powerful. To be specific, the Railgun has had its armor penetration decreased in safe mode. You can offset this still by holding down the reload button and switching into unsafe mode. However, as you probably know, doing so and overcharging the shot means you blow up. And the other potentially even bigger nerf is the fact that they have decreased damage against durable enemy parts. This means no more two-shotting the armor off of chargers' legs so that you can obliterate them in a matter of seconds. This also applies for certain bots, Bile Titans, Hive Guards, anything that has destructible parts that you can shoot off of enemies. The Railgun will still do this, it will just be weaker and slower to do so. At first, during my testing, it looked like the Railgun shot was just ricocheting off, but this is actually a visual representation of a portion of the damage ricocheting off. And as you can see, eventually this charger does go down, it will penetrate the leg, it just takes a lot longer, and it is definitely now not the most efficient way to do so. Next up, a huge buff for the flamethrower. It has had a 50% damage increase. Uninterrupted, this thing can now kill charges in around 7 seconds. As you can see, it's melting through brood commanders, hive guards, swathes of enemies in mere seconds. As long as you aren't allowing enemies to get in your face and hunters aren't transferring their burning status onto your own self, then the flamethrower is now a really viable option. And because the flames ignore armor, it is even a fantastic option for heavily armored enemies, as I say, such as the Charger. Next up, we have got the laser cannon, which not only moves so much faster now whilst you are using it, it also has increased armor penetration and increased damage against durable enemy parts. Watch this space, I'll be doing a lot of testing with the laser cannon now that it's had these improvements, because this could now be the support weapon to use. Obviously, with so many changes to the meta and so many buffs and nerfs, that means new build guides, new most efficient ways to kill all the enemies. So make sure you subscribe, because I'll be doing loads of testing over the next few days and pumping out a bunch of videos to help you really understand the changes to these weapons. But as you can see, the laser cannon is now so effective. I love the fact that as long as you don't allow it to overheat, it effectively has unlimited ammo. And unlike bullets, there is no drop-off range. As long as it can hit an enemy, even if they are 50 or 100 meters away, it will do maximum damage to them. This is a great weapon for sniping high-value targets before they have chance to get anywhere near you. Before we move into the next section, let me thank the sponsor for today's video, Factor 75. Factor 75 is a chef-prepared, ready-to-eat meal service delivered directly to your door for healthier eating made quick and easy. With no hassle pre-prepared food on hand at all times, you can have your meal ready in 2 minutes, allowing you plenty more time to dispense managed democracy throughout the galaxy. As the meals come pre-prepared, there's no mess, meaning less time in the kitchen and more time farming samples to stay ahead of your friends, whilst also staying healthier than them too. And talking of staying healthier, these meals will help you easily hit your daily nutritional goals, and healthier eating means more energy, which means even more gaming. And also, and probably most importantly for me personally, because everything is already done for you, it takes the frustration and time loss out of deciding what you're going to eat every mealtime. And if that sounds good to you, you can get 50% off your first Factor box and free wellness shots for life using my link below. That means that you can choose 2 free wellness shots from the 3 available flavors for every order whilst you are are an active subscriber. So to get your first box 50% off, click the link in the description or scan the QR code with your phone. And next up, we have got changes to 3 primary weapons as well. In no particular order, the Breaker has been nerfed significantly. Its magazine capacity being reduced from 16 to 13. And my god, when you're using it, do you realize that them extra 3 shots really made a difference? This is not as good as it was, and I'm very happy about this, because it means other weapons are now viable. Everyone just used the Breaker because there was no reason not to. And on top of the magazine capacity nerf, it also has had a recoil increase nearly twice as much, from 30 to 55. Meaning you can no longer just spray and pray with it. The recoil does start to go a bit haywire if you try to pump out all 13 rounds at once. So still very good, don't get me wrong, but there is now more viable options, which makes me so happy. And talking of more viable options, the next primary weapon we'll look at is the Punisher. This was actually my favorite shotgun for the longest time, and I'm now so happy how insanely powerful this thing has become. It's had a 50% ammo capacity increase from 40 to 60 shots. It also has increased stagger force, so as long as at least some of your spread is hitting your targets, they're going to be staggered for longer, meaning this is actually a great offensive weapon to use defensively. And on top of that, its bullet damage has been increased from 40 to 45 damage per bullet. And the final weapon that we'll be looking at today before we move on to bug fixes, stratagems and more is the Breaker Spray and Pray. Firstly, and most importantly, this has had increased armor penetration. If you've seen my video a few weeks ago, you will know that it was unable to even destroy eggs before. It can now destroy eggs, thank God for that. It's also had its fire rate increased from 300 to 330. Its number of pellets per shot increased from 12 to 16, and the magazine size reduced down from 32 to 26. Overall, it shoots faster with even more bullets, so it's now even more sprayy and even more prayy than ever, with the added bonus that it can actually now penetrate armor. Thank God, because this thing was genuinely useless. There was not a single situation where you would ever use this gun. It was so weak. Whereas, as you can see now, it can actually kill things, and it is potentially somewhat viable in crowd control situations. Next up, let me show you the 3 stratagems that have been changed. The highlight is that the personal energy shield backpack has been nerfed, and the 120mm and 380mm orbital barrages have been buffed. Let me talk to you about the specifics now. The energy shield backpack now has an increased delay before recharging once it has been taken out. So when an enemy breaches that shield, it takes longer before it comes back online and starts protecting you again. I don't know the exact amount of seconds off the top of my head, but the editor for this channel, my wonderful wife, I'm sure is about to give you a demonstration side by side of how long it took to recharge before and how long it takes to recharge now. So let me just pretend I know what that is. Whoa! Oh my god, what a nerf! That's a long amount of time. Was that convincing? Okay, swiftly moving on. We have also got the 120mm and 380mm orbital barrages. These have had huge buffs. They are now so viable, and I'm really excited about this. Both of them have had their durations doubled, so using the 380mm as an example, it now lasts for a full 30 seconds, dropping down upwards of 20 shots. And it also has a decreased spread. And please don't take decreased spread to mean nerf. This is a really good thing, because as you know, these barrages cover huge areas. This just means it's now less random, less likely to miss its target, less likely to hit you and your teammates. And as you can see here, on my first ever use of it, it manages to take out the entirety of a medium nest without me even needing to step foot in it. I wanted to love these barrages before, because in theory they sound so cool, they look so awesome, but they were so unreliable before. Not anymore. With the increased duration and the more accurate spread, they are now really viable and really powerful, especially for taking out big nests and factories. The next update before we take a look at the important fixes is the fact that Eradicate missions now require more kills to complete. Anyone who has seen my leveling guide will know that you could easily drop into an Eradicate mission, be it bugs or bots being preferred, plonk down a load of mortars, and complete the mission in 2 minutes flat. The devs have stated the time to complete the mission was previously far shorter than intended and should now take approximately twice as long to complete. Doing a solo Eradicate mission here, just on medium difficulty to test. As you can see, the amount of bugs needed to kill now is 225, when previously on a medium mission it would have been only around 100 or so. Even though I was killing them all very quick and very efficiently, it took somewhere in the range of 7 minutes to complete, as opposed to the 2 minutes that we are used to. So yes, this has been significantly nerfed. No more farming for XP and medals on Eradicate missions. And on top of that, another side effect of this that I want to make sure you're all aware of is that mortar sentries will now become less effective in these missions, because they can and almost definitely will run out of ammo far before the end of the mission. So if you've just brought in a load of sentries, by the time they all run out of ammo, they will still be on cooldown, and the second half of the mission will now be far more challenging because you will have no stratagems to back you up. Therefore, please make sure you are taking a more diverse portfolio of weaponry into these missions with you, or you will really struggle in the latter half. Now we're on to the 7 big important fixes for this patch, and I've just realized this video is going on far longer than I initially expected it to, so let me try and hurry it up here so I'm not wasting too much of your time, so you can get back to diving for freedom as soon as possible. If you stand next to the ICBM during launch, the devs have said, and I quote, "Helldivers will get properly toasty, with a chance of not so spontaneous combustion." And yes, as you can see here, when you stand by the ICBM, it gon' melt you. Next up, the biggest and best thing for me personally, armor rating values not reducing damage as intended has been fixed. Armor rating now works. To test that, I put the biggest and beefiest armor on here. This one doesn't even have any traits or perks, it just has the highest armor rating in the game. And as you can see, I am taking a beating from Hive Guards, and they are barely doing anything to me. It's taken like 7 shots just to get me down to low health. Having these armor rating values working is going to be such a game changer. No longer are traits the only thing to worry about. Heavy armor is now very viable, and you can and will be a tank. Next up, something that I didn't even realize was an issue, but now that it's been fixed, it is mind-blowing. The sand rain weather effect on Errata has been fixed. Visibility was substantially lower than the developers intended originally. As you can see in this older clip, I literally cannot see anything. It is absolutely abysmal. It was pain, and of course I died instantly trying to defend myself against waves of basically invisible enemies. However, now, towards the end of this Eradicate mission, sand rain weather effect does come into play, and as you can see, visibility has been lowered, but I can still see. And this was actually such a relief to read this in the fixes and find out that this was a bug and not something that was intended. And talking of bugs, certain bug holes that were unnecessarily hard to destroy have been fixed. This includes, as I'm sure many of you will be praying, stalker nests. There are certain nests that it seems you would throw grenade after grenade at and they would not explode unless you got the perfect angle. They seemed to be really finicky and only blow up under certain conditions. This has been completely fixed, and the angle at which you can throw your grenades at holes has become far more generous, and even if you're slightly off, your grenade will find your way into that hole and it will be destroyed first time. As we move into the final 3 changes, for better or for worse, the button interaction behavior for buttons in bunkers has now been changed. You will now automatically let go of the button after holding it for a few seconds, meaning you do actually have to coordinate with your fellow Helldivers when you press it. Because if you press and hold for too long, when it forces you off the button, you'll be locked out of the bunker for a few seconds. And on high difficulty missions, this is very valuable time loss. So now you do actually have to synchronize and coordinate when you're going to push the button to allow you to enter the bunker. Next up, and the one change that I think could still do with some improvements, apparently the flashlight efficacy has been improved. I don't really see any difference at all, if I'm entirely honest with you. I feel like the flashlight could still be better. Apparently, as I say, it has been improved, but I don't know, I'll leave that one up to you as to whether you feel like the flashlights are any use at all at the moment. And finally, something that's going to be the cause of a lot of friendly deaths. Helldivers can now take damage from fire, gas, etc. generated by other players. That's right, it was not intended that if someone threw down an orbital gas strike, you would be unaffected. Now, if you're anywhere near it, just like all of the bugs and bots, you are going to choke and you are going to die. So now be very careful when your teammates are throwing down napalm strikes, orbital gas strikes, and even the flamethrower, as that will probably be much more used now with the buff. So yes, any fire, any gas, any status effects that your allies produce, they can and will hurt you as intended. And with that, my friends, that is the 15 most important highlights from today's patch. Make sure you give the video a thumbs up so this reaches as many people as possible. Also, comment your thoughts on this patch down below. I'd love to read them. And finally, subscribe for the plethora of upcoming guides based around all of these huge improvements. And with that, my friends, all that's left for me to say is thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.